Hey all, it's MattTheCutter. Let's talk Star Realms. The Gambit set was the first expansion to White Wizard Games' flagship product. The initial core set release contained just ships and bases. A new card type entirely, Gambits, are asymmetric, assigned at random, and can be used from turn 1. Inclusion results in bigger starts and a faster game pace. Subsequent releases have widened tempo variance even further. Hero cards are acquired right into play and shortcut your ally mechanics. Event cards happen spontaneously during a game. These can trigger even from the opening trade row and further enable big starts, or can chain together and provoke sudden shifts in momentum. Missions offer an alternative win condition. Complete your 3 mission card objectives to simply end the game in your favor. It is even possible to win this way on your 3rd turn. Deemed a unicorn by the active Star Realms community, this feat is extremely rare, but the threat exists. The game has simply gotten faster. Prior to Gambits, a typical game, you could rely on between 4 and 5 deck cycles. Today, it's possible to not see a 4th or 5th turn. I'm going to take you through each of the digital Gambits, group them by theme, talk about their use, and how you might adapt to formats that feature chaos, especially missions. For the sake of this discussion, I will refer to chaotic formats as those featuring any inclusion of heroes, events, or missions. Conversely, ordered formats are those where only ships and bases will turn in the trade row. Let's start with those Gambits that provide resource on demand. These include political maneuver, rapid deployment, gray market, and asteroid mining. Resource boost requires little explanation. These are coveted for arguably disproportionate early acquisitions. Over time, I've tended to favor activation of my resource-based Gambits quite early in the game. How does all this chaos affect my decisions? Political maneuver is powerful and polarizing. A generous windfall of 2 buy power, its release in the app came at the same time as what we now call Year 1 promos. Players got, among others, the Arc. Political maneuver allows the Arc to be acquired during a player's first 2 turns, even before the first shuffle. Today, that may not even be the most devastating start in Star Realms. What is your favorite early purchase with political maneuver? Comment below to join the discussion. Rapid deployment adds only 1 to your budget, but also acquires a ship to atop your draw pile. Whether in ordered or chaotic play, cheating around the discard pile can be the difference in a 1-turn game. Rapid deployment is capable of directly aiding the setup for 9 of your 12 missions. For this reason, I will hold on to it in such games to make sure it serves that purpose. Unicorn Hunters, rapid deployment is one to be aware of for its potential to set up early mission completions. Gray Market's effectiveness spikes with an agreeable trade row. As its chosen faction discounts even 1 cost down to 0, a player with both awareness and good fortune could stumble onto a haul of early, cheap, ally-ready grabs. Though always looking for such opportunities, I will sometimes let this go for even a single purchase. Sometimes that purchase is just too important to wait around for a better use that may not come. We will briefly cover Smuggling Run here too. Acquire a card with cost 4 or less for free. Importantly, player 1 gains first access to cards like Freighter and Gunship. This is pretty good in all formats. Asteroid Mining activates once to add a trade, and then once again to draw a card. For that reason, I will discuss it further a little bit later in our discussion. In general, I will still hold that Resource Gambits and Smuggling Run really are beneficial when activated early in the game. First, to start offsetting your starters, but then also to help see your purchases the most number of times during the game. That said, some patients will hold off, in particular with rapid deployment. Holding off should especially be considered in general when playing with missions. Next, let's talk about the Gambits that feature the ability to draw 1 or more cards. Card draw helps us dig for resources to complete purchases, or for perhaps previously purchased cards to help ally faction, or sometimes just to keep the turn alive. We touched on topping tricks. Initiate draw to play your topped acquisition this turn, and perhaps complete a mission. Skilled players also recognize when they can use a draw trigger to deliberately force the shuffle. This allows the player to isolate the cards in hand and play into a new discard pile at the end of the turn. Presumably, starters or other cards he wishes not to see again until after another whole shuffle. Gambits that feature card draw include Unlikely Alliance, Bold Raid, Two-Pronged Attack, Rise to Power, Energy Shield, and the aforementioned Asteroid Mining. As I said, Asteroid Mining provides, in order, first a resource, then a draw on separate activations, making Asteroid Mining one of the most versatile in either Gambit release. Unlikely Alliance is polarizing today as it was on its release. It too could help set up an early arc acquisition. 2 cards on a stick is about as powerful as that sounds in any strategy card game. Unlikely Alliance also stands out here because it can directly complete the Armada mission for you on your first turn. Player 1 will need a little additional help from an event if in chaotic formats. Player 2, however, can simply activate into a hand of 7 starters and play them out to complete the Armada mission. If you are in this situation, make sure to play the hand out and complete the mission before you start making your purchases. You don't want to trigger events and potentially have to discard or be tempted into scrapping from hand. Bold Raid destroys target base in addition to drawing you a card, together on a single activation. This can be good early in the game if you just really need to secure a purchase, but you can hold it off to ensure a base's demise and then parlay it with perhaps drawing a topped acquisition or causing a timely shuffle. Skilled players will identify when the raid feels optimal, and that really is true in both chaotic and ordered play. Two-Pronged Attack features damage-based activations, 2 on the first and then 3 more along with the card draw on the second scrap. It is often difficult to find the damage needed to complete the Diversify mission early, but the Two-Pronged Attack has you covered. Look for times when you can exploit these separate triggers. Rise to Power adds 8 to your authority in addition to drawing a card. It buys you some time and allows you to complete the Diversify mission without ever having to invest in the Trade Federation. Finally, Energy Shield was amended to include the draw scrap trigger at the time of its digital release. The paper Gambit was not printed with this, but my group does choose to play with it as in the app. Once each time an opponent assigns damage to you, reduce the sum by 1. Some players have the patience to sit on the Energy Shield. I am not one of them, especially as the expected total number of turns decreases. I draw with this card every game. I do understand, however, players that hold it against veteran pilots. Veteran Pilots is the first of 2 static gambits. It will stay in play for the full duration of the game. Your Vipers deal 3 damage instead of 1, so your pair will hit for 6 during the first shuffle. It is important to stop and take notice when the pilots are in play on either side. I consciously assess whether I'm going to build around the card. If so, I am all in on aggro. If not, I may feel compelled to scrap them as I otherwise might. Exploiting the pilots in ordered play, I will look to hoard damage right from deck 1. I want to not only raise my own damage ratio, but deprive my opponent. I may not invest in trade at all. I will deliberately leave it in the row, hoping that my opponent overcommits to it. If the row allows me to be picky, I would like to acquire blob cards that can further deprive my foe of outposts and authority gain. With a clear path, I can sometimes reduce my opponent's authority to half before they realize what's going on and start acquiring damage. Chaos affects how and whether I play the veteran pilots, but no set more than missions. Here I recognize that I have 2 potentially shorter means to success, however the 2 will not necessarily work together. If I commit hard to securing a mission's victory, even boosted Vipers get in the way. If I go all in on aggro, I accept that my opponent's path to victory is not as vulnerable to damage deprivation. With missions, my opponent has the capability to win without acquiring any damage at all. I may feel compelled by my own missions enough to focus on their completion. If so, I just might scrap those Vipers away, as in most other contests. Frontier Fleet adds a damage to your pool per turn. This card does not offer much playable variance between formats, So we will keep it moving. We've got 7 more to go. Acceptable losses in exploration offer a head start to scrapping out your starters. Acceptable losses takes 2 but must occur from hand. Exploration scraps from hand or discard, and then also acquires an explorer to atop your draw pile. I generally believe it's never too early to start thinning out your deck. With some exceptions, I reside in the scrap Vipers first camp, and chucking them both before the shuffle can sometimes feel too good to be true. Many find the cosmic pairing of acceptable losses and veteran pilots to be the worst possible. You can avoid this entirely if you play both Gambit sets in the app, as it will automatically assign 1 to you from each set. Surprise Assault activates to deal 8 damage. I will hold Surprise Assault until it either contributes to lethal and the win, or I am compelled to destroy a base. This does not change with format. Salvage Operation places a card from your discard pile to atop your draw. We've described how topping tricks can set up your next draw to ally, or ensure completion of a mission. Salvage Operation can also supplement a remaining 4-card draw pile to prevent you from bottom decking next turn. Skilled players will pinpoint an opportune use along the way. Glorious Return goes a step further, accessing the discard pile right to hand. You do have to pay the card's cost, potentially a second time, but immediately secure ally or complete a mission, everything we said about topping tricks without also needing a draw. I will sometimes scrap Glorious Return to resurrect a Scout if there's something in the road that perhaps I really want, or a Viper if I cannot otherwise take out, say, a Brain World. Salvage Operation and Glorious Return do stand out for rewarding late use, when compelling targets are more abundant and impactful. And finally, Hidden Base. Its first activation puts a 4-strength outpost in play. It is the faction of your choice just this turn, then on a separate activation gain 4 authority. A wild base up the sleeve is pretty handy. This clever, incredibly useful Gambit combos ally abilities, but also enables those dependent on having bases, like Embassy Yacht and Battle Barge. It also plays nicely with your Year 1 promo bases that benefit for simply having played a base this turn. Perhaps the mission set MVP, it can directly aid the setup for 10 of 12 missions. Quick note on cards like Hidden Base with multiple activations, they do count as separate scraps for, say, the Reclamation Station. And that's the list, all 18. So do we treat Gambit play differently in chaotic play versus ordered? I do. The format absolutely helps me assess urgency. Ordered formats restrict variance enough to help me know when I am, say, transitioning from early to mid-game. I can afford some patience and look for optimal use opportunities. Events and heroes undermine my ability to assess the pace of play in real time. Waiting on my Gambits could risk gratuitous use, or worse not at all, wasting its power altogether. Missions in particular upend the game dramatically. We have shown that Gambits are instrumental in setting them up or outright completing them. Pay close attention to the Gambits you are assigned and the sets in play. Look consciously and critically for shortcuts and exploits. I hope I have helped you become more aware of these opportunities today. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.